It is late. 45-year-old Diwan sits under a single street lamp, watching the city move around him. He remains on this bench because he is not yet ready to face the quiet expectations waiting for him at home. The reason for his delay is simple. He is out of work. For the third time in a single year, he has been humiliated and let go. Diwan is a diligent man, but as his office integrated new software, he found himself struggling to match the speed and accuracy of the younger hires. The math of his career is visible here. As the technological shift line rises, we see the pace of automation and software adoption. Diwan's market value, represented by this second line, drops every time a process he spent years mastering is replaced by a single click. As the 3 red markers appear, his terminations align exactly with these shifts in the office workflow. In a digitized economy, decades of experience can be outweighed by months of technical training. When an older provider can no longer keep pace with the tools of his trade, he loses the only leverage he has to protect his family. Diwan finally enters his house at 10 o'clock, his shoulders heavy with a secret he isn't ready to tell. His wife meets him at the door, her voice sharp with accusations. She questions where he has been and reminds him that their grown children's futures are stalled, blaming his lack of focus for their inability to move forward with their lives. When the home becomes another source of judgment rather than a place to recover, the weight of a provider's failure becomes impossible to set down. As Diwan washes his face at the basin, his daughter confronts him. She holds up her old phone, complaining that it freezes constantly, and reminds him that he promised her a new one this morning. There is a bitter irony in her demand. Diwan was fired today because he approached his boss to ask for a salary advance, specifically to buy that phone. He says nothing. He knows that if he explains the truth, his family won't see a man who sacrificed his job for a gift. They will only see a man who can no longer provide. Dependents are often so focused on the material output of a provider that they lose the ability to see the struggle required to maintain that output. Diwan eats his dinner alone in the kitchen, separated from the rest of the household by a wall of his own making. His 24-year-old son returns home, humming a tune and smelling of alcohol. When the young man sees his father in the kitchen, he doesn't offer a greeting. He simply turns and disappears into his room. Years earlier, Diwan had tried to correct his son's behavior, but when the boy grew large enough to physically intimidate him and stare him down, Diwan realized his role as a disciplinarian had ended. His silence isn't a lack of care. It is the only way he can keep the peace in a house where his authority has been replaced by a quiet, uneasy truce. Diwan is out the door the next morning before the sun is up. He skips breakfast, heads into the city, knocks on doors, and searches for any work to keep up the appearance of a normal life. By midday, the combination of high stress and an empty stomach takes its toll. His blood sugar rapidly drops, leaving his limbs feeling heavy, and his vision blurs as he stumbles erratically toward the busy street. Disoriented and numb, he wanders off the sidewalk. He steps into the path of a speeding truck and is killed instantly. The effort to maintain the shield for his family was so consuming that he simply lost the capacity to look after his own survival. After the funeral, the house falls quiet. But the silence is different now. The invisible layer of protection that Diwan provided has vanished. The outside world begins to press in. Creditors arrive at the door, and the home's internet connection is severed because the bills have gone unpaid. The children find themselves in the workforce much sooner than they planned. The son takes a 7,000 rupee job at a shop, and the daughter starts teaching at a school for 5,000. This pillar represents the unstated contribution Diwan made every month. It was the only thing holding up the lifestyle his children took for granted. That support is gone. We see the weight fall onto the children's meager wages. Their 12,000 rupees cannot hold the roof up. The complaints about food and gadgets are replaced by the raw math of survival. This is the support system that most families never discuss. It is the work that happens in the background, which only becomes visible once the person doing it is no longer there to hold it up. Dewan's wife no longer spends her mornings in front of the mirror. Without the stability her husband provided, her own appearance has become a luxury she can no longer afford to focus on. While Dewan was alive, she slept through the night without a thought. Now she lies awake, jumping at every creak in the floorboards and every gust of wind against the window. The family finally understands who Dewan was. He was the food on the table, the roof over their heads, and the quiet security that allowed them to dream about everything else. The tragedy of the provider is that their value is often only recognized in the darkness that follows their absence. Look closely at the people who hold your world together. If they were to disappear tomorrow, you would realize that they weren't just part of your life. They were the ground you were standing on.